Good evening. My name's James Ski. Can we listen up, please? Just get the attention on the front of the room. We're about to kick off our event. Firstly, let's give ourselves a round of applause for getting outside the house. Yeah. I know it's not easy now. Some of us, especially some of those really valuable sales leaders outside the M25 in those big houses in Surrey, making a trip in this evening is much appreciated. So this is our final sales confidence event of the year. And this event is focused on sales leadership and having thought leadership from some of the top leaders in the UK, if not the world, in fact. I mean, we have got a hugely impressive pedigree of speakers tonight, and I'm really looking forward to you to giving me your full attention and enjoy this event. So I'm going to give you the rundown of the event in a moment, but I need to invite up my co-host this evening, Owen. Come up on stage. Round of applause.
Hello.
Exciting. So Owen Richards is the CEO and founder of Air Marketing. And for the last year, I've been making my life a little bit easier by having a co-host, because it means I can run around doing what I need to get done. So Owen, I would love to just hear a few words from you, and then we'll kick off the event in a moment.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks for having me on. Great to be here. I think it's starting to feel a bit normal getting back in person, isn't it?
I agree,
to some degree.
yes.
It's really nice to do. I think the key thing today, we've got some great speakers, as James said, and I think it's a fantastic community that we've been a part of for 2.5 or 3 years now. Really enjoy getting to know people at this event and always come away, A, learning something, and B, building some great connections and taking some sensible business conversations away. So make the most of it, enjoy the bar, no doubt, and enjoy the talks that we'll have as well today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Owen. Like, one of the things, this is a community of people that come together and enjoy each other's company, right? And it's about relationships. And I was just thinking back this time last year when there was no events, and I was sitting at home doing this event in my boxer shorts. But I was worried about the year ahead, and there's people like Owen out there that have supported me through this community and our sponsors that are featured here, and have made a real difference to actually getting through the year. And I'll be honest, it's been difficult trying to maintain this type of style of event when we weren't allowed to come to events for a full year. So I really appreciate all the sponsors and everybody for just coming out, because it makes a difference and it means I'll keep doing these events. So in terms of the order tonight, we've actually got a special guest tonight. We've got Thibaut, who was the founding EMEA sales leader for Snowflake, who went through the IPO just over a year ago, and is now advising startups. He's going to say a few words. And then we've got a range of speakers that are fantastic. They're going to deliver you some value in 7 minutes. So most of you know it's 7-minute talks, so they get about 7 minutes or more if we like them. If you don't, you can start nodding and waving at them to get off the stage, but hopefully we'll give them a break. And then after that, Owen will host a panel discussion, so that will give you an opportunity to ask questions from the audience. And then we will run down the top 50 sales leaders for this year. So this is the 5th year we've done this. We've featured an incredible set of leaders every year, and it's basically a list to watch, and I'll explain how we gather the results as we go forward. So Thibaut, I'll invite you up to the stage. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Thibaut. So I received the prize, so thank you, because last year there was no physical event. It was an event at distance, and thank you for having this prize of UK top sales leader with someone with the worst English accent probably in London. But yeah, I'm French. Nobody noticed that, but I'm French. And 5 years ago, so I started all activities for Snowflake. I see some faces in the room that I know. I started alone in a very small office in Paddington, and I scaled up this business in 14 different countries, from zero to also 180 partners that help us to operate in 21 countries. I can't share the numbers, but it was multi-millions that we did from literally zero, because when I started, people were thinking, for people who are living in London, you have an ice cream shop named Snowflake. So everybody was thinking I was selling ice cream, but it was not. It was a data cloud platform. So I did that during 4.5 years. And I was sharing this just before with the speakers. The time you start to speak about the toilet papers that you need to choose for the office or the color of the carpet, it's probably a big, very big company. And it was for me time probably to leave, because I love to help startup. I'm a sales guy, and this is something very important for me to keep this spirit. And now the company is quite big, so there are around like 1,000 people in Europe. So as I said, now the role is completely different. So I'm advisor and board member now for different companies. And I was asking James, what do you want me to talk about? And because I have 2 minutes, I think. But just to go quick, so it was a fantastic experience for me, probably the best experience of my life. It changed my life also. It was difficult. You need to be ready for that. So for the people who are launching startups, it's a tough experience, because I think I'm about to get the British nationality, so don't tell that. But But they are looking at the number of days that I did in the UK. And when I started, I think probably 200 days a year, I was on the road traveling because I opened all those 14 countries. And it's not something easy to do, so you need to be prepared for that. But when you have a risk-taker mindset, it's always pay off. And this is something I always try to keep in mind. So now I'm a board member for different companies, also advising. And the only thing I was thinking today, because we have a lot of good sales leaders in the room today, it's I was thinking about probably something that I can share, and we are about to. So I'm a board member for data operations company named Rivery. It's an American one. We'll start activities in the UK, and right now, and because the company is American and Israel. And we are about to hire someone. And the first guy on the ground was asking to get a very big title. And this is something that I always keep in mind. And for sales leader in the room, the advice I can share is never think about titles, but think about opportunities. I didn't care about titles all my life. Honestly, I think I'm still a sales guy. I never care about having a GM or VP EMEA or whatever role. When you are 22 years old, you can't be senior vice president of a company. It's nice on paper, but this is not the reality. And this is something, so keep something like that always in mind. Be humble, drive by the front, and this will pay off. There are a lot of very nice companies. I was looking at the companies tonight and discussing also with the speaker. So enjoy tonight. If you want to speak, I'm here for the night. And thank you for inviting me, James. Thank you.
Brilliant. So we've got 4 speakers coming up. First one coming up. Now, I did have to inquire with James today because I thought we'd have some nice cards with writing on, but apparently it's acceptable to read off your phone nowadays. So I'm just reading some... Sorry? It's all the style, isn't it? That's exactly how we've got it. So coming up first of our 4 speakers is Jamie Mellalieu, and he is the CRO at UserZoom. So his title for his talk is Using Values to Drive Sales Performance. He's going to be talking about sharing value-based methods that have been highly effective for his team. Jamie is an experienced sales leader specializing in digital SaaS and tech, and he joined UserZoom in 2013 as a business development manager for Europe before progressing to his current role of CRO in 2018. And I think the biggest piece is that they've had a huge amount of growth this year, and I know they've got a huge amount of growth forecasted next year, so I'm sure that we'll learn a lot from listening to him talk. So if you could welcome Jamie up to the stage, and Jamie's going to do his 7 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Am I on? I am. I guess the first thing I should say is the irony is not lost that I'm the guy you're going to need subtitles for, not Thibaut. But let's see how we go. You can just raise your hand if you don't understand what I'm saying. All right, so why did I pick this topic? I've been managing sales teams for 22 years, actually literally half my life now at 44. And you start out in sales leadership and you read all the books and you do all the stuff and you have metrics and you have sales process and you have all of those things. And that was certainly the case for me. And you need all of those things. And yet, you would hire two people that seem equally skilled, equally experienced, both seem equally poised for success in that organization. And one may succeed and another one may fail. And I never figured it out. For at least 3 or 4 years, I never figured it out. And I just thought, well, okay, some people make it and some people don't. And then what happened is over the course of my career, I started to realize that the more I helped people manage their emotional state, get to some kind of level of neutrality, so that they could receive any kind of learning or not feel quite so judged by the machine or their manager or the system or their number, the more successful that they seem to be. So in terms of emotional state, salespeople, maybe sales leaders, tend to live in two places, hope and fear. It's kind of where we are, right? God, we hope it goes well, and oh my God, but what if it doesn't? And if I lose this quarter, what happens next quarter? And what if I run out of logos to get? They want me to get more logos, and it's very, very hard to play loose if you live in those two emotional states. So, I don't know now, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I decided to write down what I thought our values should be as a sales organization. And so I'll give you the 4, and then I'll kind of explain how we use it. So the first one is something called continuous improvement through incremental gain. We also term that Kaizen, which is the Japanese name for that particular philosophy. The second one is teamwork. And there's a lot goes into this. I know that's a thing that goes on everyone's slide. Teamwork, we believe in teamwork. But it's a thing. The third one is courage and humility. And then the fourth one, and this usually gets a reaction, I'm not trying to, is the undying love of Manchester United. Now, that does a few things. First off, hopefully, yeah, there you go. This is where it all goes wrong. And I get heckled. I stand here proud, but slightly embarrassed. And that one's really more of a metaphor for fun. You know, we are not doctors and nurses on the precipice of a global pandemic, having tried to run it 2 years, ground into the ground. We're not in the forces, we're not in the police, we're not in those services that really matter to us as humans, that keep us as society and keep us going. We're trying to sell software and hopefully make our customers' lives better and improve what they're trying to do. So try and have fun, because to Thibaut's point, you're going to spend a lot of time together figuring out a lot of stuff at a breakneck pace if you are trying to do it. Q2 this year, we hired 49 people. Q3, we hired 76. God knows what we'll end up hiring in Q4. And that is stressful. Even when you're winning, that's stressful, let alone if you can't. And as everybody knows, it's not the easiest jobs market right now. So try to remember to have fun. Yes, we're a software company. I'll confess it. We have a ping pong table, but that's not really what it means. By trying to have fun it's when your salesperson comes into your room and is very, very, very clearly distraught by the fact that the sales not going well, or the procurement person's not getting back to them, or the business user's gone dark. You've got a choice as a leader of how you react to that. Now, I'm not saying that fun means that you start juggling and playing Cluedo and all of that stuff, but you can definitely manage their state, and I guarantee they will be more successful and more likely to close that particular deal. So I'm going to use Kaizen as a start. So interestingly, it was invented in America post-war when they were asked to build up the Japanese economy again, having, unfortunately, been not particularly nice to Japan during the war. And the Americans kind of left it, but the Japanese, being the Japanese, really crafted it and mastered it, and it drove a lot of their manufacturing. And so all it really means is that rather than think about a big, big goal, try to break it down into its smallest possible component and get a small improvement. How I came to it was, I read a blog post about Dave Brailsford. Anybody know who Dave Brailsford is? Is that ringing any bells for some people? So some nods, some not nods, so I'll explain. So Dave Brailsford is a guy that's kind of revolutionized British cycling. I'm not particularly a cycling fan, but I read a blog about how he did it, and I was like, that's the thing. That's how I can help people figure this emotion stuff out and get them back to neutral. So to explain the blog post, I guess, what basically happened was the UK British cycling team, before Dave Brailsford joined, was a bit crap. There was one good guy in like 20 years. We'd won half a medal. We'd never won the Tour de France, all of that stuff. And when they interviewed him, they said, look, your target is just try and get a medal. Just one medal. We don't care about the color. We don't care where it's awarded. Just try and get a medal. And he went, forget that. That's not what we're doing. Everybody that goes, their aim is to get a medal or nothing is how he termed it. In the British Board of Cycling said, sounds amazing, but by our estimates, that's a 30% jump in performance. How are you going to get a 30% jump in performance? Because as everybody knows, in anything elite sport, elite sales leadership, that level of jump is just a phenomenal amount of jump to make. And he mentioned this philosophy. And so what he did he did things like he would take the rider and he would look at what they were wearing, right? And if they were a distance rider, did it reduce chafing? Did it make them more extreme? If they were a power rider, did it add to the power that they were trying to deliver through the bike, right? The bike itself, of course, the wheels, the tires, the brakes, the saddle, all of that stuff, 0.5% here, 1% there. Within 3 to 4 months of him running the team, each athlete had their own customized mattress that they would take to every hotel to aid recovery. Because there's some really tall guys and girls in the cycling teams, and there are some really smaller, more powerfully built people, and they needed different levels of mattress support. It got to the point where they'd had a couple of technical breakdowns, and he spent all evening watching the mechanics work through the night to see what they were doing wrong. They weren't doing anything wrong. What was happening was the lighting was poor. And so they were making mistakes and they were dropping screws, and it was taking them ages to find the screws, and so they were tired and frustrated and making little mistakes. So he did 2 things. He improved the lighting in the trucks, and he put a magnetic pad on the back of the glove. So if they dropped something, they didn't really need it, they could just pick it up on the glove and take it off the glove. And it reduced the mechanical failures by something ridiculous like 80%. And I read that, and I thought, that's it. Not that we're all going to go and get bikes and wear Lycra and mattresses and all of that, but that's how I do it. And so I got the sales team that I ran at the time, I got them all in a room, furiously excited. And when your sales team are going, good, yeah. But I started to implement it, and it worked. So I'll give you an example. I'm in a fortunate position where Usersm's doing very well, and I have sales teams all over the place. When I'm in town, which is starting to happen again, particularly with the younger sales teams, I'll say to them, hands up if you've worried about your number this week or this month. In fact, the sales leaders in this room, hands up if you worried about your number in the last day. Right? Human emotion. Perfectly fine. We are emotional, sentient beings. It's not about removing emotion. It's about accepting that we have it, but learning to think through it and manage it. And so I say to them, that's okay, that's fine. But hands up if you're worried about making your demo 1% better, or knowing 1% more about that particular ICP or that particular persona. And of course, all of them go, well, not in a while. I mean, the training was like August, and they don't. They worry about the result. You can't change that result. You can only manage, change, and execute a process. So you have to accept that emotion, but transfer it to somewhere else and look for incremental gains. And that is one of the big ways that you can really, really drive improvement. So if a salesperson happens to be in my office and they're worried about the number, one of the common behaviors is, in fact, the most common behavior is, they've got one deal at the end of the quarter and they need to close it. And that emotion drives fairly short-term or immediate and sometimes kind of dumb thinking. What they do is they ring that customer every day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day. They ring procurement, they complain to procurement that the other guy's not done the thing, and then they come into the office and just go, oh, it's still commit, right? And so what happens is, rather than thinking, well, how the hell have I got myself into a position where I have one opportunity that I absolutely have to close? What do I do about that? So next time, I still got the one to close, but I've got 5. So I've got a good shot and I'm a little less stressed, and probably it's a better buying experience for the prospects. They don't. They keep picking up that phone. And so with these values, we try to help them recognize that the emotions of hope and fear, which is just perfectly acceptable and everybody has it, drives maybe not the smartest behavior. And what we do is we Kaizen it. Why are you at this point in the quarter with whatever it is that you don't have? Think about that. Now, when I run Kaizen sessions with teams, it's hard. It's hard to think small. And it's kind of the antithesis of what SAS talks about. Think big, move fast, break stuff, all of that kind of rah blog stuff. And so I'll say to a team of SDRs, right, let's pick something to improve. Outreach. Okay, great. What? Emails. Okay, smaller. Well, good emails. It's actually really hard to do, to break it down. And then eventually you'll get to, I'll tell you what, guys, how about next time you do a campaign, you A/B test a subject line? Could you do that for me? And most of them go, actually, yeah, I could do that. All of a sudden, they're not worried about the 5, 10, 15 meetings they need to get. They're trying to do an A/B test on a subject line, and guess what? The A/B test a subject line, and they get the number that they were chasing because they tried to manage the process, not the thing. And so all of these other principles that we have, we're really using to try to help them manage their emotional state at certain touch points through the SaaS soap opera that we live, right? So teamwork's another one. Teamwork sounds like a twee thing that you put on a slide, and it isn't. There's loads of studies that I've not got time to go through that shows you that the best teams are the ones that share opinions regardless of seniority, regardless of tenure, regardless of intellect, regardless of anything. Everybody in that team has an opinion, and all of those opinions will be given due consideration. It's not highest IQ, it's not most tenure, it's none of that. And so again, when everyone's in a room and everyone's pointing fingers, well, it wasn't me. My email was stellar. Marketing did this thing that didn't help me, right? We tried to say, guys, hey, whoa, right? What was it that marketing did? Marketing, you can't get mad. What was the thing that they did? Okay, is that something you can improve? Or is that, why did we do that? And so on and so on and so on. The undying love of Manchester United is a little harder to operationalize, I'll be honest. It's kind of in you or it ain't. So I'll finish up by saying, don't fake this. You can't fake it. I've seen it. I've seen those twee presentations where teamwork's on there, and then you minute in the room, the sales manager's pointing at the board going, well, this isn't very good, is it? Look at this stack rank. What's going on here? So don't do it if you don't want to follow it through. Genuinely go home and think about the values that you try to espouse when you're in battle. It's easy to be friendly and fun when the heat's not on. But when it's Q4 and you need that deal, you still got to be able to occasionally go to the guy, you know what? Let's just talk about over a game of ping pong. Maybe the ping pong table does work, who knows, right? Or, look, you know what, let's go for a beer, let's chill out. Like, we'll figure it out, right? And if you can't bring yourself to do that, because not everybody's built the same way and some people are passionate and all the rest of it, maybe passion's one of your values. And you explain why passion isn't a bad thing, because it's okay to get a little heated as long as you feel, I don't know. But think about it. And then in thinking about it, communicate it. We communicate our values all the time. They're on the walls. We talk about it at kickoff. We run sessions about them. We make sure we reference them in most one-on-ones. The first thing I had to do, because I manage quite often managers of managers these days, is see if they bought in. Because if they don't believe in the values I said were our values, probably not really our values. The other thing that's proven to be really useful, actually, is if you talk about it in your recruitment, which is a challenge for everybody these days, it actually becomes a differentiator. Not many people are talking about that. They're talking about the ping pong table and the rah, rah, rah and all of that. And that's fine, because that's part of it. But if you've got a clear set of values and you can explain how you practice them and what that means, we found our recruitment to be way more successful. And then talk about it at kickoff. So I'll finish up by saying, I have found using a published set of values a fantastic way to genuinely get through that shell that salespeople build and help them change behavior. I'm not talking to you, that person, about how bad you are. We're talking about this thing that we do, Kaizen. And it's an incredibly refreshing way to look at challenges. And I couldn't recommend it any higher. Thanks very much.
That was awesome. Thank you very much for kicking off. That was an awesome talk. So next up, we've got Miranda Matthews, who's going to be talking about architecture, not art. She's a strategic and results-orientated senior manager with over 10 years' experience, and she joined Treatwell as managing director of the UK and Ireland earlier this year, with 6 years' previous experiences from Ritual.co. And she's originally from Canada and was responsible for launching Ritual into new markets across North America and the UK and Europe before landing in the UK. So really looking forward to this talk. Miranda, over to you.
Thanks, James. Oh, is this on? There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm really looking forward to speaking tonight. I've attended a few sales confidence events in the past, but they've all been online. So I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit nervous when James first reached out to me, being alongside 3 amazing CROs that have a ton of knowledge and experience. I was slightly intimidated, but in thinking about what I would speak about, I know I've got some interesting lessons learned that I'm really excited to share tonight, and hopefully you guys find my perspective valuable. When I was thinking about which topic I would speak about, I immediately went to the things I was most passionate about, and that was, I talk about diversity and empowering young women. And then I thought, no, I'll talk about personal values and how you can align that with a business and how magical it'd be. Both those topics were taken. So I kept thinking about, what else really matters here? And it was really the thing that frustrated me the most over the last couple of years. And that's, how do you build great SaaS leaders, specifically from other business and revenue models like marketplaces, where I've had a lot of my experience. So like James said, I started actually in tech only 6 years ago. So I started working for Ritual in Toronto, where I'm from. And Ritual is a food tech marketplace. So our supply is restaurants in dense corporate areas. Think about places like Canary Wharf, and our demand were users that picked up coffee and lunch every day. So worked at Ritual for many years, launched new markets, was in London working in Canary Wharf, and the pandemic happened. So you can imagine what happened to our business pretty quickly overnight. At that time, our really talented product and tech teams built a white label SaaS solution for restaurants, so own label online ordering. And literally overnight, we pivoted from being a marketplace business to a SaaS company. Fast forward to where I am today. I work for Treatwell. Some of you may or may not know what Treatwell is. We're a beauty bookings platform, so we process about 1 million orders a month. And Treatwell's gone through the exact same thing. So historically, Treatwell was always a marketplace, and then over time, we decided to launch a salon management software for all of our partners, and did the same thing. We pivoted from being a marketplace to a SaaS company. The thing that really, I guess, surprised me the most throughout both of these transitions is really how underestimated this shift would be on the sales function. So if we take a step back and we look at the basic sort of fundamentals of a marketplace business versus a SaaS company, they're really not the same. So in a marketplace, what are you trying to do? You have to connect your supply with demand. You want the best supply to generate demand, and you need that demand to provide value to that supply, the chicken and egg problem, as we know. A few really important things here. Not all supply is created equal, the 80-20 rule, and you're on this race to market liquidity. So you have to build density quickly, and you do that by making sure you have the supply that matters. So if you're thinking about an online marketplace like Amazon, you need to have all of the brands or the products that people care about. Or if you're a real world marketplace like Treatwell, you need to have all of the salons in my neighborhood for me to want to open the app. If all of a sudden you become a SaaS company, these things don't matter as much, and all of a sudden you can sell your product to anybody, technically. Of course, things like ICP, lead qualification matters, but now you have to take a super systematic approach and rely on very different metrics. And your process, your pricing, and your payback is really what keeps you in business. So your teams really can't show up the same way. If you think about it from a marketplace perspective, you have to show up like special forces versus like a SaaS army. And if you think about it like through a partner or a customer perspective, asking someone to pay commission on only what they sell is very different than asking for recurring monthly fees up front. So for any salesperson that's been through this transition, it's like a slap in the face if you're used to the luxury of a marketplace conversion and you know these two things aren't the same. So when you go through a transition like this, a shift has to happen at every single level. Your salespeople need to drop the art of it all. You need to make sure that you're converting on that top 20% super, super quickly. Otherwise, you start to smell your cash burning, and you're really not going to be able to get demand quick enough. And your sales leaders need to operate like systems architects, and you need to make sure you're having all of these incremental changes that Jamie was just talking about happening at the same time. So you need to have the right tools, the right management, the right systems, the right mindset is really important. So your teams really can't show up the same way to be successful. So what I really want to say here is if you're going through this transition as a business, or if you're bringing in people from a recruitment standpoint, from these types of business models, you need to take into consideration how the skill set and all of the things that you may need to supplement for if you're moving into SaaS from a marketplace. If we're thinking about how to build the best sort of sales leaders, I kind of think about how you balance the systematic approach with more traditional soft sales skills as building a house. You as sales leaders are responsible for finding the materials, drawing the blueprint, and building the foundation. And you have to have the right managers and skilled specialists to interior decorate, to bring the whole thing together to make it feel like a home. And so when you think about it from a recruitment perspective, like I said, it's super important to supplement the right skill sets. But where else are we getting our sales leaders from if they're not from different businesses? And that's from within. So I've also spent some time thinking about the background of junior salespeople that come in into different organizations. And traditionally, they're not from STEM backgrounds. Maybe some of them might be, but the majority aren't. I can't tell you how many times I've heard about salespeople saying, I don't know how I got here, but I'm here. And so it's really important to develop the right leadership and the right scientific mindset to think this way. From people that are coming into the organization, you're being really deliberate about when you feed that way of thinking in. So you don't want to do it too early in someone's career, because you want to make sure they excel in their current role and they don't take on too much to have a whole new way of thinking while doing their current job. But once someone's been overperforming in their role for some time, I think it's really important to have them think through business problems and think through things through a completely different lens. Ideally, thinking about things that are more abstract and a little bit more complex, and trying to find a way to make order and logic out of things that don't intrinsically have it. So I just think it's really important to be deliberate about timing here, and there's no perfect answer, but just make sure you take that into consideration as you try to build that right scientific, systematic approach to the SaaS leaders that you're growing from within. Pretty sure I'm coming up to my 7 minutes, so I just want to loop back and leave you with a couple of main thoughts, and that really is, don't underestimate the shift of transition. Finding great sales leaders, SaaS sales leaders from different revenue and business models. It's significant. And also, if you're trying to grow the best salespeople from within, make sure you round out their skill set with the right scientific way of thinking at the right time. That's it for me.
Thank you, Miranda. Appreciate that. Very good points. Guys, if you've got questions, just jot them down in your notes or something and hold them for the end, because we will put questions to the guys at the end. Next speaker up is Rob Massa. So Rob is the CRO at Forecast. His title of his talk today is The Importance of Leadership During the Toughest Times, which I think is a great title. The value of showing empathy is something he's going to touch on, alongside leadership in general difficult times, as we all tend to talk about leadership highs rather than the lows. Rob is reasonably new to Forecast, so I think he joined last year, was it? Yeah, the beginning of last year, so just around COVID times, having previously held roles at BounceX as their GM of EMEA and Opt Intelligence as well. Rob, come on up. Thank you.
Is this thing on? There we go. Just want to thank James, Owen, the rest of Sales Confidence, all the sponsors, and of course, the rest of our amazing speakers. Honored to be a part of this lineup here. So I network frequently with many sales leaders, and one of the things I find interesting is generally when you ask them how things are going, it's always, we're smashing our targets, we're crushing our quota. It's never been better, our growth's crazy. And it's interesting because I actually, I read a survey recently from HubSpot that, where they surveyed, I think, 500 sales leaders. And out of the 500 who responded, 40% of them said that they actually missed their annual target last year. Yet, when you speak to sales leaders, they're always talking about how great everything's going. So I think it's interesting because the hardest times are the times that we learn the most. And when you're thinking about how you can learn from your mistakes, learn from your failures, go through a rough patch and really come out better on the other side, those are the times that actually make us leaders. And those are the times that actually make us better. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight, I wanted to talk about leadership, but I also didn't want to necessarily talk about it from just a positive lens, but also like sometimes on the negative lens, and when things are not going so well. Because I think over the last 20 months or so, when things kind of turned itself on its head, many of us went through challenges that we probably never thought we would face. New obstacles came up each and every day. We had to think about things like having to build a new team remotely, having to make sure that our team's mental health was okay when you're not really with them all day. And just in general, how do you take that culture that you had and actually replicate that virtually? And those are things we just never really thought about. So I was thinking, how can we or I, kind of spread what we've done to just make sure that the leadership is going well when you don't really know and don't really have a full heartbeat on what's actually going on. So how many people over the last 20 months, if you want to raise your hand, feel like you hit a little bit of a rough patch? And how many people feels like you're having a rough patch right now? And how many people feel like when you've hit a rough patch and you're in this new whole working environment where some people are in the office, some people are out of the office, it's been a little bit more difficult? And that's, I think, what really makes leadership great, as weird as that sounds. We need to think about how we can step up in these situations when you have a team that's partially in the office, partially remote, and you don't really have a full idea of like what's going on and when. So it's interesting because right now I would say there's never been a time where there's been more VC money flowing around, ever, with valuations that are astronomical. And what does that do to us? What does that do to people like us? It increases expectations. It puts higher targets on our shoulders and gives us a lot more stress. And when you have more stress, your team has more stress. So it's very difficult to manage, especially when you're not all necessarily in the office all day together. So what I really wanted to kind of hone in on is how you deal with that with your team and really call out 4 main themes that I use to get through some of these harder times that we have. And that's whether you're trying to figure out how to make sure that you guys have enough pipeline to meet your quarterly number. Sometimes when win rates go down, what's going on? Your team morale is obviously going to go down a little bit. How do you build them up? How do you get them back to where they should be? And these 4 key themes for me have really helped out. And I would say that it's something that I definitely didn't always do, but something now that I've kind of learned just through the thick and thin to really start building on to make sure that I can understand both how I can build up my teams, both mental health and confidence through some of the tougher times. So the first one is taking responsibility. So how do you take responsibility in front of your team to let them know that it starts with you? If you're the leader and you feel like your team has a downturn, it starts with you. So you need to take responsibility. What that also does is it takes a little bit of pressure off of them. It gives them a little bit more confidence that it starts with you. The second thing is just being totally transparent about the situation. It's okay for things not to be perfect all the time. And I think sometimes we go through these journeys at these SaaS companies and feel like everything always has to be perfect. But in reality, that's very rarely the case. So it's okay to acknowledge the imperfection. It's important to provide that transparency. It's important to really answer these 3 main questions. What improvements are we making? And what decisions have we made to make them? What is leading to this downturn, or what is leading to these problems? And then most importantly, what is the path forward? And what is the crystal clear picture that's gonna essentially move the needle and turn things around? And the crystal clear picture is the most important thing, because what that will do is it'll turn your team from thinking about the negative into, okay, let's look to the future, to the positive. And here's exactly how we're gonna do it. And I know that my leader knows exactly what's happening and what's going on, and this is the way that we're gonna make it happen. So be transparent. The third one, and this one I would say is more of, I would say more relevant for the whole hybrid working model, but just over-index on enablement. I think enablement in this atmosphere right now is huge. You need to get your team doing role plays. You need to get your team doing, everyone getting together and listening to calls. It's more important than ever because right now, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but I know my team's not in the office every day. So how are people listening to other people speak on the phone? It's more important than ever to get them together and get them engaged with one another, especially during a downturn, to see how they can improve. So over-index on enablement. And then lastly, it might sound cliche, but show empathy. Empathetic leaders, studies show that empathetic leaders cultivate the best relationships with their team. So show empathy. It's acknowledge that it's okay to miss a quarter. Everybody misses a quarter. That's why we have targets. That's totally okay. And what that does is it almost creates a little bit of vulnerability on your side to make your team members know that you feel it with them and that you're right there with them and that they don't necessarily need to feel the pressure, although they still do, of missing a quarter. So take responsibility, be transparent, over-index on enablement, and show empathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That was awesome. So our final speaker up this evening, I've been doing this for about 4, almost 5 years now, and there's some individuals that I have to hunt out, and like in sales, they just ignore you continuously. And this is one of those individuals. So I'm grateful that Grant Coleman, who's a CRO of Massa, recently acquired by SAP, I believe, is going to be joining us on stage as the final speaker this evening. He's going to be talking about hiring differently, challenging the status quo to building high-performing sales teams. He started his SaaS career at ZMags as a sales manager for the UK and EMEA and progressed to the VP of Global Sales. And he joined Massa in 2016. He's had an incredible run there, signed from regional vice president and then took over recently as the global CRO. So let's have a round of applause for our final speaker.
Thank you, James. It was weird when you show up at my house to get me to come here, but hands up if you're jealous of Jamie with 130 hires in 2 quarters. Like, what the hell? I'm one of those people that have been crying into beers with Rob, talking about our sales careers, respectively. So there's a level of honesty there which is refreshing, trust me. But really good to hear the talks today. And thank you for having me on stage. So I chose a topic of hiring differently because it's something that's very personal to me, but I think it should be very important to all of you. Because it is a period of growth that we're going through within SaaS. We need to hire, and hiring has become one of the most difficult areas of all of our businesses. And I don't know whose business plan allowed for next year's hires to cost 40% more with half the experience and the same quota, but that's what we all face right now, right? So it's going to be a tough and challenging market. And I thought perhaps what I would come with today was a review of my story and how I got into SaaS in the first place and try and inspire people to think differently about where you find your talent. So yeah, I'm going to talk all about me. So let me talk about my journey. So I didn't come from a typical SaaS kind of journey. My journey was different. I left school, went to university without really a goal of what I wanted to get out of uni. So I didn't really go to uni. I went to uni like it was a school, went to the closest uni to where I lived. And after 3 months of basically going to school and not really getting it, not having any of the fun things, I got a parking ticket. And I thought it was a sign from God that I needed to stop university. And I left that day. I told the university 3 months later that I'd left, not that they cared. I told my parents 6 months later that I'd left, not that they really cared, but it was a pretty big deal at the time in my head. Anyway, then on a journey of various different careers, I found myself at Mercedes-Benz in a non-sales role. I was a service manager there for 5 years. Got myself as a young 20, in my mid-20s, into a fair amount of debt, trying to keep up with the Joneses, have a fun time, go on fancy holidays, do fun stuff. And then I was like, I can't afford to have this job anymore. I need a better job. Read an advert in a paper about a sales job that was going to pay me £20,000 a month if I was successful, selling investment property in Dubai. Before I know it, I'm working in an office in Guildford, selling investment property in Dubai, with 30 other, mostly men. There was one lady there, basically in a boiler room situation, trying to get people on an aeroplane to buy a property in Dubai. So my job was to get them on the plane, $300 a day. Miserable. Anyway, 3 months later, the whole thing's a scam. The whole company gets shut down. I'm now unemployed. in 2009, in the global recession, wondering what the hell I'm going to do with my life. And I was like, well, what's worse than being unemployed? Being an estate agent. I'll do that. Okay, so I go to a few interviews, quite easily get a job, 16,000 a year a base. I'm like, yeah, this is great. I'm going to earn so little money. And then the first day of that job, I got a phone call from a Canadian guy. And he called to say they want to see every property in the area of Clapham I was working in with 2 bedrooms. So we had 6 properties. And that Saturday I had 3 hours with him and his wife. By the end of it, he said, I know no one in the UK. I'm about to set up shop of this software company called ZMags, or ZMags, another problem for the company. Why don't you come work for me? And I had no idea about SaaS technology. It was in Guildford. I lived in Hounslow. I was like, this is a long way away, but I was desperate. And he took a chance on me, and I did that job. From 2009 to now, I've gone from SDR to CRO. So it's been a really big journey of me being a sole contributor to running teams of 25, 20, 40, 100, 250, and now over 300 people, and scaling up. So it's been a hell of a journey, but it started with somebody that gave me a chance. It gave a chance to somebody without the experience, without the university degree that we all demand on our job descriptions, and said, you seem like you could do the job. Now, not everyone's going to have that experience that I've had, but there are lessons within that I think we should all learn as we're trying to grow the talent base where there is not enough people with the experience that we want to go around. So, what I thought I would share with you is a few things that might help as we're trying to grow that talent base. One is look at your job descriptions. What are they asking for and why? Is a university degree essential to the role of a salesperson, a client success manager, a growth manager, an SDR within your business? Why are you valuing that high? Because most of the graduates that come into interview at my place think they should be CEO within 3 years. They have very lofty expectations about what this career is going to be like. Now, this is not me digging on degrees, because there is obviously a level of experience and smarts that you get from that university education. But why do we preclude anyone else from getting in the door? It's also about values. And now, we all have values. So I won't talk about establishing values. What I'll talk about is when you have the chance to demonstrate them, please do. If you say you love customers and a customer's having a bad experience, do something very visible about it. Take responsibility, take ownership. And the reason why I say that is because that will then create a culture within your business where referrals will take hold. And you need referrals in your business to grow the talent pool. You need people that come from different backgrounds, non-obvious areas, that come because they love the business. Because those people already come in with an idea about what you want. And they wouldn't recommend that person in if they didn't think they could deliver something within that culture. And the last thing I'll say is create a safe place for sharing feedback. This is really tough to do, but it kind of links into some of the things that Jamie spoke about and Rob spoke about, which is honesty and empathy. If it's easy to get on with your team as a leader and you remove those barriers and you make it more relaxed, you remove stress. Again, from an idea of referrals, getting people to attract to your business, you need that. And we all need a way to attract more people to our businesses right now, and it's tough because Jamie's getting them all, and that's not on. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Fantastic speakers tonight. Let's have one more round of applause for all our speakers, please. That was amazing. So we're going to now go through the panel. So this is a chance for asking questions to Owen. So if we have all the speakers up, and then we'll announce the top 50, and then we can have some more drinks and food.
Come on up, guys. I'm going to start with a question before we go out to the audience. That's right. And it's on topic with Grant and Jamie's conversation just now. We'll hand the mic along if we're micless or have to project your voice. Grant, you've touched on the fact that, I can't remember the exact stats, but 40% more cost, much harder to find people. Jamie, I know it's jovial, but a lot of people onboarded in the last couple of quarters at a time where I'm sure many people in the room have battled with trying to find good people. So what have you been doing to get that kind of volume? What things have you seen work and what things have you seen fail across that journey?
Screaming, crying. So the first thing is we went to market in Q2 and we started to see weird things happening. And by the end of Q2, we realized everything we've ever done to hire people is kind of broken. And that was very, very hard for all sorts of reasons. So I had sales managers saying, oh gosh, she was really, really good, but you know what? She didn't want to come to Denver, so we've passed. Like, you've got 8 hires. You've got 1 in the hopper and she's awesome and you've let her go. Yeah. There's so much embedded bias with the way we've done things in the past. So that's honestly probably been one of the biggest ones, which, we've hosted digital events. And it's, by the way, that's not just across my teams, the numbers that I gave, I meant as an overall company. And we've had a lot of arguments with finance about why we're spending money on stuff and what we're doing and, the risks to the plans. And so you've just got to engage your stakeholders and genuinely ask yourself, to your point earlier, really, like, why are you saying that this is a vital part of the job? Do they need to be in Denver? What's your concern? And it's always the same thing in sales. Oh yeah, but you need the atmosphere. Everyone needs to be in the same place. You need the energy. It's like, well, you've got to figure out a better way to do it because not everyone's going to be in the same place. So what are we going to do about that?
Yeah, a lot of it's been about changing minds and changing ways of thinking that have been ingrained for a long, long time. I'll put it out to the audience. Pop your hand up if you've got a question that you'd like to put. Chris, fire away.
So for Miranda, fantastic in terms of commentary. But my worst trait as a salesperson is I forget people's names. Grant. Yes. Thank you. Just in terms of your comments around authenticity as a leader, I think they matter massively now. I think everyone needs to know they need to be comfortable to engage people in a very, very different way. That means that people can actually open up to you in terms of your style as a leader, your style as somebody that can actually be listened to, in terms of you don't have to have a university degree to be successful in sales. In fact, the best salespeople are typically drug dealers. But I just really
Guilty.
I just want to know how you can embark on that mission that you're saying very well about opening yourself up to your sales teams in terms of letting themselves be themselves and actually showcasing what they have to add to your organisation.
I think it starts with just being a bit more vulnerable and speaking about yourself in an authentic way. You have to be careful though. There's a boundary of we're all stressed all the time and you can't let that stress impact your organization because they will feel that as well. So it has to be like an open, here's the problems I'm suffering, here's what I'm doing about it, here's where I'm seeing successes. So you have to really give a balanced view, but you have to be super open. You have to let them in at a level deeper than what would naturally be there. I have no problem asking more questions about them as people, sharing shared stories, like getting beyond the business side of it. I think that's super important. But yeah, what I would mostly say is just be careful about sharing your stresses. You got to share it, but it's absolutely fine to share problems, solutions, actions you're taking, next things that you're doing. But you've got to try and find a way to be open and a format to be open. And that can be within a group, a small group, a one-to-one, where you show some vulnerability. Find ways to do it. It's tough to give you one tip about what works, but I'm always trying to connect with the person in front of me. And that means that you have to take a veneer off yourself. And what I found is, as I've gone up in roles, it's the new people coming in that see my job title that have that bigger barrier. There's more work to do with people that start now. It's like the CRO. I'm like, I'm just Grant from Hounslow. Like, relax. Like, I used to sell drugs. It's fine. But yeah. That's what I find. Thank you.
Love it. Any other questions? Fire away. Hey, Matt.
Another question for Ron.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for the talks. Awesome. Question about creating that space to give feedback.
Yeah.
This is something that I'm trying to set up on my team at the moment. Even harder is perhaps as a sales leader and the founder.
Yeah.
Like, any tips? Have you tried maybe anonymous feedback forms? Any kind of structure in place for that?
So I would encourage starting with an anonymous survey. That can often tease up some of the things that people are thinking about that they're not talking about. And then you don't need to call it out that from the survey, this happened. You might do that, but that's normally a HR response. What you then need to do is find a way to address those topics with action. So I know this is a problem because I've had this feedback and this is what we're doing about it. So get ready to share the action you're going to take. And then with that action, then you create a safe place for people to be able to raise their hand and say, I think you're missing the point, or I think we should do this. Because then you've listened, you're taking an action that you think is right, but you're also giving them the ability to talk about what the planned actions are. So that's what I would do. I mean, that's a really good tip. We survey our staff once every quarter across the whole company, and then we measure all the different departmental feedbacks. It's a great exercise to do, however large the organization is. But
I'm just going to add to this.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with what I was talking about earlier, but just something that I've been thinking about a lot as well. And there's some great tools out there. I think some of the ones I've used in the past, like Culture Amp and Peakon, are pretty good. People trust the anonymous aspect of it. Something that I set up as well are town halls, and just I think the way that goes, having an open forum and really expressing empathy as well, and making sure that people feel like it's a genuine safe space and they can say what they need to and they're going to be heard. And like, it's not necessarily a place for action at that exact time, but just like creating that environment where people can count on that open forum being there, and then taking what they said and actually doing something about it quickly. Just lets them know that we do it every quarter as well, or every 6 weeks. So just knowing that that cycle comes every so often really makes them feel like there's a consistency to being heard as well.
I'm just keen to explore something. We've got 4 fantastic sales leaders in one place right now. Rob, you made a really good point about leadership being so critical at a time where things are challenging and maybe not right. Could the 4 of you maybe talk around something that you've had to change in your leadership style, something that you've shifted or thought differently about over the last 18 months? I don't know if somebody wants to go first and nominate to take that one on.
Not me.
I started selling drugs again. No.
Not another one.
We've got to start somewhere.
Grant nailed it. I've never, in my career, because pre-pandemic, I would just fly all over the place all the time. And you get a lot of shared experiences from that, and it humanises you and it humanises them. I've got a sales ops junior guy that I can't get him to relax on a Zoom call. I cannot do it. I can, like, hey, how's it going? Yes, I spent quality time with the wife, thank you. How was your weekend? Come on, dude. Like, so I've had to learn how to try and not be CRO at all on a Zoom, and try to recognise that it's harder for them than it ever is for you for things like that. That would be mine.
Thank you. Miranda?
I've actually been going through a bit of a weird challenge with, I guess, with the current situation. I'm in a place right now where we're trying to build a performance culture while at the same time doing the right things to support people from a mental health perspective and just everything that you were mentioning. So it's like this tough balance of like tough love, I guess, and making sure that people feel heard and people feel safe, and we're expressing empathy and we're taking care of mental health. But at the same time, we have to be really tough because the team that I'm building are all new working together, and most of them haven't had to work through this type of performance culture that we're trying to build. So there's this balance that we're trying to achieve. But what I keep bringing it back to is really just, we want the best out of people. And I think tough love can be taken the wrong way sometimes, but we really want to challenge people for them to grow. And so I think what I'm going through right now is just making sure that we balance both of those things at once, but being really genuine in your communication and with your intentions as well as a leader is super important, and saying that like, I want you to do these things, or I want to push you in this way, or I'm asking you to take these actions for you to be challenged, for you to learn, for you to iterate, and knowing that it's coming from the right place to make them a better employee and to make them a better person and to learn and to grow. So just a bit of a unique experience, but trying to balance both this tough place that we are in as a world, but also trying to do the opposite thing at the same time with pushing people to the limits. So, yeah.
Just a general sense of openness. Like, I think we've all dealt with things over the last 20 months at this point that I think we never thought we would. And it's important to be open to change. And kind of like what Jamie said, like, things are just not going to work the way they used to. And it's actually interesting. There's kind of like a little bit of like a shift in, I think the leaders like us in the room and used to kind of dictate exactly where you needed to be when. Whereas now it's like, it's actually the employees who's actually dictating where they want to be when. And being comfortable with that and making sure you have trust in the people that you hire to be comfortable with that is more important than ever, because who knows when you have a team of people and what they're actually doing all day, if they're not on, you don't see them on Zoom. So I think just a general openness to kind of conform into what your talent, the talent that you want to hire wants to do, because if you're not open to doing that, you're not going to get the best talent.
Yeah, I think openness as well. But I think what the pandemic has done for all of us is created a shared problem that we can all bond over. We all go through the same experience. It's not a job title thing. It's not a status thing. It's something that we're all going through. I've found using the shared experience a great way to break down barriers and walls between people and how people are feeling, and get them to talk and express their feelings and emotions to find out where the stress really is. So it can be a bit cliche at time, but to what Rob says, I think there's also this challenge about how we bring new talent into the organization and the speed at which they will now learn. Like one of the reasons we're looking for experience right now is because we don't know how to train people in this format. And we need to create a reason for people to sort of come together physically again and learn, because we all benefited from learning by osmosis. It was happening around us. We heard conversations. We saw somebody do something good. We heard a great sales technique. We saw a customer problem get solved in a certain way. We're all winners because of that. What does the next gen, and even if you're experienced, but you're from an aligned sector, so you're SaaS experienced, but you know nothing about MarTech, in my world, you're kind of useless. Your experience is useless in this context. And training you is going to be really tough. So the over-indexing on learning and enablement and shadowing on all these things. And in the end, although that remote is fundamentally the way we are working right now, probably in 90% of cases, there will need to become some way to bring back people physically for that learning. We owe it to the next talent coming through, whether they're so-called experienced or brand new, to give them that same sense of ability to learn over time.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's a sense of responsibility as employers and leaders to show people what's the best practice and how do we get the best out of you, rather than what do you want to do today. And it's balancing those two things. Really interesting. Thank you, guys. Back to the audience. Anyone else got a question? Fire away. Yeah, go for it.
Hi, guys. Actually, a question for everybody. So I work with customer success. So I'm predominantly post-sales. I want to do some outreach as well. So actually, it's a question for all of you. So I am in a role where I'm typically expected to help the customers after the sale is done. So all of the optimization and the improvements you make to your sales processes of the sales team, how do you incorporate people such as in my role to bring them into those best practices and ensure that they continue with the right sales mindset after the deal is done?
I mean, you're still selling, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're just part.
Exactly. But often I report to CSO, but that's not the case for every company. So how do you get service and support into sales?
I mean, as a CRO, I couldn't imagine not owning the entire customer experience fundamentally, right? So what we're trying to drive is the revenue, and the revenue only works if the retention is there as a foundation for growth. And if you can't drive growth from your client base, we're all screwed. Because, like I was actually talking before about the harmonization with Jamie about harmonizing the revenue organization. When I first came into Emarsys, it was new business against client success almost. Like it was like, I fucking hate you, these deals are shit. Like what am I supposed to do with this? You've basically lied, and actually pulling people back. And the more control I got over the entire experience, so going from sales, success, then getting solution consulting, then getting implementation, then having a view on support and finance, you realize it's a completely connected customer experience. So this is not a sales challenge. Just thinking about sales as a growth challenge, and the revenue teams and the revenue management teams are actually part of that and keeping them connected. You know, we're constantly enabling people on the sales process, on the post-sales side of things, if you want to call it post-sales, but I honestly think it's all part of the same journey.
Sales end, right?
Well, also, I mean, to be fair, it's also an incentive challenge. How are different people incentivized? So I would assure you that there was a lot of push and pull because you were incentivized one way to sell as many deals as possible, and they're incentivized another way to retain as many. So you're just like, let's get all this shit through the door. And they're like, well, wait, there's too much shit coming through the door.
There's definitely a bit of that.
So yeah, I mean, kind of, it's about unifying it, but it's also about the incentives. Like the incentives need to align, because if the incentives don't align, then you're going to constantly have that push and pull.
I would add, not everyone's going to make it. Yeah. So I had the exact same experience with Grant. Sorry, did I skip mine?
No, go ahead. I'll go after.
You don't all have to answer every question as well, only if you've got something to say.
So I had the exact same experience. Thank you for the mic. And there was for some of those people, there was I am not sales. And unfortunately, that's okay, that you just need to be part of a different team, because maybe you'll be successful elsewhere, and many of them have gone on to be. I remember there's one girl, super smart, really clever. She went on to Riverbed, I think it was, and she's gone through the ranks and done really well, but she objected to the whole sales premise, and that's completely fine. And so Gartner did a really important study 2 years ago, and it said nearly every SaaS company makes the same mistake, in effect, which is they think it's about quality of service. So if I answer your email, Mr. Customer, in 2.8 seconds, you're more likely to love me than if I do it in 3.2. And actually, the most correlatory factor between renewals, which is what it's about, right, or not, is did you do upsells? Did you sell to them? People that want to renew will buy other stuff. So that'd be my bit.
Yeah, just adding on to this as well, I think when you think about how these teams connect and speak with each other often too, there's two really important things in my view, and that's like consistent communication and proper feedback, and like being very honest with each other. And with that comes the understanding that you both have the best intentions. I think you get into a really sticky area where your incentives are lots of these other things are not aligned, but if you don't have proper connection with these other teams, and you also don't have the right expectations on that those people have your best you don't assume that the other team is doing the best thing for you and for the partner, it really breaks down. So those are two really important pieces as well from my perspective.
Thanks, Miranda. There was a question just over there. One more question right at the back over there.
Thanks. Yeah, this one was about, and it comes from what Grant said about the interviewing and degrees and that not being the important thing. I think I can definitely relate to the fact that we're paying more now for people with less experience. So values becomes more important, and we've probably all got different values that we look for when we hire people. But I'm just interested with people with so much experience that interviewed so many people, what's a key value that you look for? And with such a short time in the interview process, how do you figure out whether they've got that?
Good question.
So I've got three that I value more high than others. Not that it's the defining factor, but empathy, intellect, and curiosity for me, so that people will fundamentally care. They will seek information. They will actually engage customers. And they'll just be smart. And smart isn't about which degree you have. It could just be that you just know after speaking to somebody through an interview process, how they're smart, the last book they read, what they're into, the last book they recommended. There are a few interview questions to identify these types of things, but those are the three key values. And it doesn't matter if they're in sales, success, solutions, support, it's the same thing. For me, those are the three guiding ones for myself.
I have a bunch, but I would say the most important one for me is coachability. If you're tasked with being the coach, you need to make sure that the people on your team are able to be coached. And the way that you do that in an interview process is tell them to sell you their last product that they sold. Walk them through like the feedback on how exactly to do that, and then what exactly you thought that should have went better, and then just have them replay it to you.
I agree with all of these values. They're pretty important to me as well. I think just thinking about a few other things, I think having a mindset of personal growth is really important as well. So you're really looking for people through sort of lived experiences or life experiences that they can speak you through. There's this consistent theme of always wanting to be better, and whether you see that through sport or excellence, and just valuing that over everything. And I know we're talking about people wanting crazy titles as well earlier on, and like those type of people see through that, and they don't care about a title. They care about what they're going to learn and how they're going to grow and develop. So that's a really big one for me as well.
Yeah, I agree with all of those. I would say two things. First thing is the question that you've asked, I think, is the challenge, because quite often you're interviewing salespeople. So if you say, "How coachable are you?" I am so coachable. You could coach me right now, and I would be coached, right? And that's really hard. So actually figuring out not what you want to test for, but how to test it so that you don't see it is a thing. So for example, if I want a humble manager, I'll ask them 2 questions. Who's mentored you in your career and how did they change it? And the ones that struggle to even think about it because they're just naturally brilliant, right? It's like, okay, and then you test a bit deeper. The ones that have got that, and then you say, okay, who have you mentored and where are they today? So I've spent more time thinking about how the hell am I going to test for this thing than anything else. That would be the first thing I say. And then the last thing is just Harvard Business School, 3 years ago now, all right, I'm going to confess. By mistake, I may have stole Harvard Business Magazine in an airport. It was inside the thing. I didn't see it. Total fluke. Anyway, I'm on the plane. Oh, okay, cool. It's 17 quid. And I'm reading it, and it was all about, they test for 2 things. Ego drive and empathy. So empathy was their number 1. And what they basically say is if you've got high empathy but no ego drive, the need to sell and hit a target, you'll be the nice guy that nobody ever buys from. If you've got high ego drive, you need to sell, but you've not got high empathy, they'll do some sales, but they'll bruise people on the way in, which isn't great for SaaS because you also need them to renew. So we also try to kind of factor high empathy and high ego drive. Do they have a need to sell? So back to what you were saying, if they're passionate about something, maybe go a little against it and say, well, go on then. You got 2 minutes to convince me, maybe I'll change my mind. Try and gamify it, and if they do a good job, maybe they've got that need to persuade.
Just want to dive in. I've been eyeballed over here for one question. Put it at one person for me so that we don't do 4 answers because we're really pressed on time.
I'm really sorry, everyone. I know everyone's drinks and beers. But a question for me, all the questions, sorry, my name's Lou. All the questions have been kind of like top down. I want to put it the other way, right? We're sales leaders. And Grant, you mentioned this, you've heard it so many times. If you've been trying to hire right now, the market's fire. To your point, you're paying guys and girls double what you were paying 2-3 years ago. Now, somehow, as leaders, we need to sell that story up the chain. So we're going to pay someone double, expect less. And that's a challenge we all face. Round time's going to be another 3 months that we're all remote now. Obviously, I've tried doing that with my CEOs, VCs, PEs, you have to deal with more, there's expectations. It'd just be good to hear some tips. But in that way, I'll share knowledge on what's working and set expectations with our bosses.
So as a Mancunian, I'm prone to argument. And it's just been that. You know, I've got a really, really experienced CFO, wipes the floor with me in terms of experience, like IPO'd a gajillion times, run companies that are globally, own the universe, that whole thing, right? But I'll show him the metrics and say, that AE's got no SDR. How far is he behind plan? These 3 AEs have got an SDR. Where are they at? And what do you need me to do? And he's over, you know, it's not like oh yeah, good point. You know, there's a few arguments and you have to corral maybe your CEO in, but that's really where metrics help. So if you've not got those metrics, that is going to be tricky, but maybe include them in investigating the metrics. But if you've got those metrics, even the worst CFOs and investors shouldn't really argue with the data if you've got it. It's solid.
Yeah. Just carrying on with that theme, I know a lot of the data is still, like industry data is still catching up to where we are right now. So, I mean, you can still use just like simple data points that you have. Like if you're not hiring someone, what's the alternative, right? If your seats are empty, and also take the market data that you have from people that you're interviewing and expectations, like that is better than nothing. And I guess a last thing is go to bat for the people that you think are worth it, and just make sure you can explain their value pretty clearly. And yeah, that's I guess my 2 cents on it.
Yes, and also have your talent team, like, I mean, I know our people director has a full network of other talent people. And what she's done recently is kind of benchmarked, like did like a re-benchmarking since all this crazy VC money came out. And everyone's kind of paying ridiculous salaries now. And we basically just re-benchmarked all the roles based on kind of what she's hearing from others who are doing the exact same thing she is. So I would request that your team does that, because then you'll get a good idea of actually what's going on. And that'll also give your exec team what they need to understand exactly what they need to pay.
Yeah, this one, I think for me, it's more balanced. So rather than just pay more, because that spiral is never going to end. And it also sets misaligned expectations for the people that are already in seat, thinking, this person's half the time in a sales role than I am, and you've just paid this person this much more. They find out. for sure. So you're walking a tightrope on this one. But it's also about maybe giving the SDR the chance to promote, that thing that we talk about but rarely do. Actually give that SDR the chance to step up, maybe hire from different industry, be brave. Are they in a sales role? Because if they're in a sales role, you're going to go through 6 months of enablement anyway. What could you achieve in 6 months? You can probably get them to sell the product that you're selling without the SaaS experience. So, think about where others, we had amazing success hiring recruiters because they hit the phone, they're good with people, they're good at convincing people to do stuff. And they're cheaper than SaaS professionals, right? So this is another way to do it. So balance it. There's no doubt about it. You have to pay more in this market, but I'm not prepared to let that go to the extreme. I just see loads of downstream impact.
It's also a massive assumption to assume that your managers, if you're at that stage where you've got managers, can actually sell your company because you train them to sell your product. And I've been in an interview and heard one of my SDR leaders try and sell the company and gone, oh my God, that's not it. And interestingly, we took him out of publishing. He'd never been in SaaS, he really wanted to get into it. But in publishing, he'd never really had to sell it before because it's like, we're this huge publishing company, come join us, right? And so we went for a beer. You'll find us a common solution in my world. I taught him how I would pitch it. The values and all that good stuff that we use. So a blend, I guess, of all of it.
Thank you, guys. Jamie, Miranda, Rob, Grant, thank you very much for giving your time today and your insight as well. Very much appreciated.
Cool. So that was incredible. So happy to know that we record all of these talks, and there's now something like 450 videos up on the Sales Confidence YouTube channel. So if you're looking for some insights, go back over the archives. So this is now the top 50. This was created in 2017, and I think this is our 5th year. And some of the leaders that have been nominated as the top 10 or top number 1, we've had people like Pete Crosby. When I say these names, I know some of you will nod. Jeremy Stracker, who built New Voice Media, Nicole Brookie from Receipt Bank, and then last year, Thibaut from Snowflake. Like, these individuals are superstars and in their own right, world-class leaders. And so when we put together this list, we do take it from nominations. So there is a sense of, popularity in your team if you're getting nominated to be on this list. And then there is some science in the background when we look at growth data, company data, investment data. So if there's been some kind of acquisition or event, that does influence where you fall on the list. And the other point is that it's a list to watch. We don't know the performance. You might look at some of the names and think, he's a wanker. I don't know how he got on that list.
Are you on there again?
Well, they all are. Sorry. The point being is that, it's a list to watch, and, there's an element of some fun around it as well. So all we're going to do, because we don't want to be sitting in here thanking everyone for how being great they are, we're just going to show the top 50, and if you see your name and you see yourself, just walk up on the stage, and then me and Owen will then count down the top 10, and then we'll announce this year's top 50 sales leader. And then we can go and have some more drinks and some more food. So, we do want a bit of just to say, we don't feature the sponsors because that would be pay to play. And there are some great leaders in the room who I respect. But it is, of course, great thanks to all our sponsors that have allowed this to happen. So can we get a round of applause? Let's get some buzz going. So this is down to the top 50. So if you see yourself on there and you're in this list, next 40, I think we've got someone else in the room. We've got Pete in the room. Yeah, stand up and come up. Come up on the stage if you've seen your face, yeah. Come up. Come up if you've seen yourself. Round of applause, come up. Come up onto the stage. So we got Ben at 30. I think we've got Jamie in the room. And we got Chris.
Chris Dudridge.
That's you, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry. And then we've got the next 20. Keep the round of applause going. Come on. Miranda's up there. Come on stage. Come on stage if you see yourself. Okay, and then the final 10. Oh, we skipped it. So at 10, we got Stephen Line from Harness in number 9.
Laura Maguire from Live Person.
8th, we got Nick Barham, VP Sales of Scandit. 7th.
We've got Penny Orr from iManage.
6th, Nicole Mellalieu.
5th is Rob Massa, our very own talker from today from Forecast. Well done, Rob. Come on up.
Number 4,
Get
Neil
up on stage,
Rylands. Come up on stage. And then we got the final 3, Jamie, Kathleen and Grant Holman is this year's top sales leader. Guys, you just want to line up? Just want to line up together. Just line up. Line up, line up. You weren't expecting this, just say
What am I supposed to say about this? Thank you very much. This is a hell of an honour, and I've obviously had a lot of respect for James and the organisation that he's built to recognise this talent, and to be at this point and to get recognised in this way. Obviously, it helps to be acquired, clearly. But thank you for the recognition. Thank you for the sponsors for putting this night on, and thanks for all the questions from the audience. It's great to have this amongst my peers. Finally, after all this time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers, Rob. Well done, mate. So there you go, a bit of fun, but also some seriousness of the announcement. Thank you every single person that's come this evening, and also to all the organisers behind the scenes and all the people contributing to making the event happen. Round of applause, please, to our sponsors and our speakers once more. Thank you very much. And that's it. That is the final sales confidence of the year. Thank you very much. Go and grab some drinks and some food. Thank you all.